Hey Krishna, welcome to the Srimad Bhagavatam discussion. So today we'll have the final episode of Maharaja Chitraketu's class, or his episode. So first we will start with Mangalacharan prayers. One second. Okay, hopefully you can see the screen. Oh. What is that? 1 second. Sorry, there's some in the way. Okay, hopefully you can see the screen. Yes. Okay. So we can recite together. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya
Chakshurmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namah.
Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutrapad Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sadajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Tam Sajivam Advaitam Samadhina Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpataruscha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay. Then we will recite the invocation verses for Srimad Bhagavatam, paying our respectful obeisances to Shukadev Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj and Suta Goswami and the Shaunakadi Rishis. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Namo
Bhagavate
Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Namaskrityam
Namaskritam
Namaskrityam
Narottamam
Charam Chaiva
Devim
Narottamam
Saraswatim Vyasam
Devi
Devim
Saraswati
Saraswati
Vyasam
Vyasam
Jayamudiraet
Tato Jayamudiriye
Yate
Prayeshu Bhadreshu
Natsaprayeshu Bhadreshu
Treshu
Bhagavata Sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata
Devate
Sevayam
Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati
Bhakti
Naishti
Bhaktir Bhavati Naiti
Vasudevaya
Krishna
Krishnaya Vasudevaya
Nandanaya Cha
Devi
Devaki
Nandanaya Cha
Nandanaya Cha
Maraya
Nanda
Kumaraya
Namo Namaha.
Govindaya
Govindaya Namo
Namaha.
Namaha.
So we are discussing the story of Maharaj Chitraketu, and the main focus is the temporariness of the material world. So this is our third class on this topic. So hopefully you have been part of the first two. So very quickly we will recap the story. So Maharaj Chitraketu, a very long time back, was the emperor of the whole earth, but he did not have a son. And he was very, very unhappy with that. And last in the previous session, now we are going through the detailed some of the verses, a selection of the verses, where we discussed how just by lack of one thing, how unhappy he was, in spite, even though he had everything else. So then Angira Muni comes and gives him the boon of having a son. So he performs a yajna and gives some kheer, some sweet rice as prasad, which he asks him to give it to one of his wives. So he gives it to the wife he loved the most, and she was the chief queen, Kritadyuti, and she eats that sweet rice, and then she becomes pregnant and has a son. And his name is Harsha Shoka, which means that this son will give happiness as well as misery. Yeah. So the king also became very affectionate to his son, and he became very affectionate to his wife as well, even more affectionate to his wife, to the extent that the other wives became extremely jealous and envious. So we discussed this last time, how the envy increased and increased and increased, and it spiraled to the point of complete hatred, to the point there that they lost their intelligence, what to do. And in this, whether it was in the spur of the moment or some premeditation, one of the wives administered poison to the son, and the son died. So imagine, after so much efforts, the king had a son, and finally he lost the son. So this is that picture which shows how devastated he was. And Angira Muni, who is one of the great Saptarishis, the great seven sages, could realize that Maharaj Chitraketu is undergoing some very severe problems. So he comes again, and this time he brings yet another very, very great Rishi with him, Narada Muni. So they both come and they try to console the king and the queen, but they are not. The king is a little bit consoled, but the queen is not. And so finally they ask, what do you want? The queen says, I want my son back. That's the only thing that will give me happiness. So by Narad Muni's powers, he brings the son back. And that is where we start our story today. So the son comes back to life. So the soul, basically, which was traveling from body to body, by the power of Narada Muni and Angira Muni, they are able to recall that soul back into this body of the child. So this child wakes up. And when this child wakes up, let us see what he says. So now we will switch to here. So we will switch to the Srimad Bhagavatam. So I have selected a few verses. I have it on a little post-it here. So we will go through these verses. I will share the screen. So we go to, which canto should we go to?
Canto 6.
Canto 6, very nice. Which chapter should we go to?
Now 16, we should start.
Okay, that's nice, very nice. But we will still some verses in 15.
Okay.
Yes,
Oh,
15.
so actually, yeah, so there were few verses in chapter 15 which are very nice that I wanted to go through. And let me go to the advanced view. Those who don't know, in the Veda base, there is default view and advanced view. Advanced view is very nice. So we will go to verse number 20, which is, so we will go through some of these verses little quickly, but there are some very, very important instructions in these verses, extremely important instructions. So here, Angira Muni is saying these verses, or this particular verse, number 20. To Chitraketu Maharaj, before they bring back the son to life. Okay, so this is before they bring back the son to life, and this is one of the important instructions of Narad Muni and Angira Muni to Chitraketu Maharaj. And the instruction basically is that when saints come to the house of Grihasthas, so when Angira Rishi first came to the house of Chitraketu Maharaj, what did Chitraketu Maharaj ask for? What did he ask for?
Son, for his son.
For a son, exactly. Is that the purpose? Now you must have seen in various movies or TV serials, Narad Muni keeps going from one place to another. Similarly, all the rishis keep going from one place to the other. What is the purpose of them to go from one place to the other? To give sons to people?
No, to preach about the Dharma, real Dharma.
Yeah, to preach about, which we'll see today, Bhagavat Dharma, the duty for devotees, the devotional service, the science of bhakti. But he says to him that when I came to your house, I actually came to give you spiritual knowledge, but your state of mind was not ready to accept spiritual knowledge. So I gave you a son. I knew that nothing else will satisfy you. So the learning that we have from this is that when the saints see that we are so absorbed in material pursuits, there is no point in talking about spiritual pursuits. But when saints come, and it's not very frequently that saints come, even for Maharaja Chitraketu, who's the emperor, the saints don't come so frequently to people's house. We should be ready to ask the right questions. We should be ready to ask for the right boon. And if our whole consciousness during our life is just based on material consciousness, then when the saints come, that will be the one that is occupying our mind. it is going to be very hard to completely just transform yourself and say, oh, let me think what is the best thing to ask. That is not going to happen. So we must immerse our consciousness in spiritual progress, how to make spiritual advancement throughout the time. And whenever we get the opportunity to get a boon from such great people, then that is what will come out of our mouth. That will be at the top of our mind. So this is a very nice, and they will also realize what this person's mood is, what this person's aspirations are, and they will give accordingly. Otherwise, it's not like they will give what you want. They want to give spiritual, but it will cause a disturbance. If one is just too absorbed materially, if they give something spiritual, it will not make a match. It will only create disturbance. So the receptor must be aligned, and then the giver can give what is best for us. So that is the point of this verse. So it's a very nice verse, very important as to how we should tune our consciousness always towards spiritual advancement, so that we can take the maximum advantage when such saintly people come. Otherwise, the saintly people will see, oh, this guy is just absorbed. They will go away. So this is what he says. So please let us recite this verse. You can see the verse on the screen. Tadaiva te param jnanam
Devate param jnanam
dadami griham agataha
dadamyaham agata
yatva anya abhinivesham te
jnatvanyabhinivesham te
putram eva dadamyaham.
putram eva dadamyaham.
So Angira Rishi is saying this, that tadaiva te param jnanam, that I had come there to give you param jnana, to give you the spiritual knowledge. But to that, dadami griham agataha, that's why I came to your griha, to your house, agataha, to give that spiritual knowledge. Gyatva anya abhinivesham te, but on learning that your anya abhinivesham means your mind was invested somewhere else. Putram eva dadamyaham, then I gave you where your mind was invested, which was in getting a son, a putra. So I gave you that. So very clearly Angira Rishi is saying what he thought he wanted to give, but what he ended up giving, based on the consciousness invested in the wrong place by Maharaja Chitraketu. Those who don't have a son or child don't need to lament. They can focus on the main purpose of life. Even when there is a child, the purpose should be to give the child Krishna consciousness. If there is no child, give everybody Krishna consciousness in the whole world. Make your whole world the family. So that is the verse that I wanted to cover. And let us see. Yeah, this is another very important verse, number 27. So we'll see, we'll try to go as quickly as possible, but these are some very, very important verses. Number 27, sorry, number 26 we will cover first. So this is why it is so important that one should contemplate all the time as to what our real goal is. We should spend time consciously thinking where we are going. You must have, those who have been in very corporate discussions or this on that one, it's not just the speed, it's the direction. You may be going very fast, but in the wrong direction. Then what is the point? You must stop and evaluate, am I going in the right direction? So this process of taking, we are just so busy. Every single day when we get up in the morning, there is always a list of to-do things. The moment you get up, okay, you may finish your daily activities, some worship, whatever commitments you have made to do worship, deity seva, some chanting, But then you're just waiting. Okay, I'll open my inbox and see what is waiting, my next meeting. And the life just keeps going on and on and on till the night when you're dead and tired and you crash. And next morning, same thing. And even if there is some time available, some pocket of time, then immediately the thought comes, oh, I have been working so hard. How can I relax? Finally, I got 3 hours of time today. Finally, my evening is free. No meetings. How can I fill it with some enjoyment? Right? So what else do we do other than this? So we never stop to think where we are going. What is the goal of my life? In corporate circles, we call this strategic planning. Okay, you can keep doing project execution, one project, another project, whatever project. That in our life also we have little projects. But where do you spend the time to do some long-term planning? Is this where we want to go? Many companies also don't do that. Then when some downturn hits, then the simple solution is layoffs, cost cutting, layoffs. If you had done the long-term planning from beginning, then this situation will not arise. So similarly, in our life, miseries arrive, and then we take some band-aid approach, fix it, somehow fix it and move on. So it is very, very important to stop and think and do course correction and long-term thinking. And I have said this before also, the purpose of Ekadashi is that every 14 days, according to the Shastra, they have given a purpose or a stipulated time. Close the kitchen. The purpose of Ekadashi is not to cook nice meals using non-grain items. Make Ekadashi pizza, Ekadashi gulab jamun, Ekadashi whatever, puris. That is not the purpose of Ekadashi. How to come up with your innovation in cooking without grains. The purpose is to really shut down the kitchen, which is a big part of life, of day-to-day life, so that you can eat fruits and milk. You don't have to do much cooking. The purpose of Ekadashi is to give rest to your stove. Keep the stove as cold as possible. And take the time, whatever you get out of that. Whatever time you get back, you sit and think about your spiritual progress. That is the purpose. So that is what is, in a sense, of course, this verse is not talking about Ekadashi, but it is talking about taking a break and contemplating seriously where the heck my life is going. And if we don't do this regularly, then once in a while when great saints come, then what's the point? Okay. So that is what this verse is saying. So every verse, as we have said so many times, that starts with Tasmat is a red flag, important verse, Tasmat. So every time you see Tasmat, you must highlight that verse because it's an important verse. It is conclusion. It means therefore. Hare Krishna. So let us recite this verse. Tasmat swasthena manasa
Tasmat swasthena manasa
vimrishya gatim atmanaha
Vimrishya gatim atmana
dvaite dhruva artha vishramam
Vaite dhvata visrambham
yaj upashamam avisha.
Yaj upashamam avisha.
So tasmat swasthena manasa. Therefore, with a swasthi means healthy, but here it means with a very careful, manasa means mind. Therefore, with a very careful mind, very careful contemplation, vimrishya gatim atmanaha, that one should consider atmanaha, one's own gati. Gati means where we are going, where we are and where we are going. In a GPS, you need two things, right? You need your current position and you need a map. Just knowing your current position is useless. If you just know your current position, but don't have a map, it will just show a point on a blank screen. What's the point of knowing your position without a map? So you should know your current position, and you need to have the map, that the direction in which I have to go. So that is gatin, your current position and where you are going. You should think about this with a careful mind. And you have to consider dvaite dhruva artha vishrambham, that you have to consider what is dvaita, means duality. You have all read in Bhagavad Gita, which means impermanent. Dual means that is not permanent, like heat and cold, summer and winter. Summer is permanent? No. Anything that is dual is impermanent because it keeps oscillating. Dhruva means fixed. That's we call Dhruva Tara. Dhruva Tara or a Dhruva Nakshatra means it doesn't move in the sky. So Dhruva means fixed. So we have to see what is permanent and what is non-permanent, and think about that. Material things are all impermanent. The spiritual advancement is permanent. Tyaja upashamam avisha, that we should tyaja. Avisha means take, tyaj means give up. So we must choose between the two, which one to give up, which one to accept. If we are all materialists, we will accept the duality and give up the dhruva. If we are smart spiritually, we will accept the dhruva and give up the dvaita. So we must be very careful so this thinking has to be done. What am I doing? Why have I taken on all these different projects in my life? Is it really 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line? Is it really going to matter? What will really matter in my life? So that long-term thinking we have to develop. Just like we think long-term, if I don't take care of my body today, if I eat too much sugar, if I whatever, then 20, 30 years down the line, we will face problems. So when we can think like that for the current life, we must think like that for future lives as well. And finally, we will go and in this chapter, look at the last verse. The last verse is, so let us read the translation of this one. So let us see in the room. Would you like to read this? Loud, clear, slow, 3 things.
Therefore, O King Chitraketu carefully considered the position of the Atma. In other words, try to understand who you are, whether body, mind, or soul. Consider where you have come from, where you are going after giving up this body, and why you are under the control of material limitation. Try to understand your real position in this way, and then you will be able to give up your unnecessary attachment. You will also be able to give up the belief that this material world or anything not directly in touch with the universe, the Krishna, is eternal. Thus, you will obtain peace.
Very nice. Thus, you will obtain peace by carefully considering what is permanent, what is temporary, and making the smart choices on a day-to-day basis about choosing the permanent versus the temporary. All right. And then the last verse, then Narad Muni. So remember, this is Narad Muni and Angira Muni talking to King Chitraketu. Finally, they tell that the smartest thing to do is to invest your time in doing bhakti to Bhagawaan Vishnu. And in this particular case, Narad Muni says, I will give you a mantra which is dedicated to Lord Sankarshana. And you chant this mantra continuously with lot of dedication, lot of devotion for 7 days. And you will be greatly benefited. So this verse is directly telling us that the smartest thing to do is to do Krishna Bhakti. Krishna Bhakti through chanting of mantras. So let us read this verse. So this verse is basically two main foci. Plural of focus is foci. So two main foci of this verses are Bhakti Yoga, and not only Bhakti Yoga, but Bhakti Yoga through chanting of mantras. And we all have the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So very simple mantra, not much, it doesn't take much to remember. You hear it for 5 minutes, it's easy to remember. So very simple, very powerful mantra has been given to us, and we should similarly engage in this process. So let us recite this. Sri Narada Uvacha.
Sri
Sri Narada Uvacha
Etam mantra Upanishadam
Etam Mantra
Nishidam
Upanishadam
Praticha Prayato Mama
Arti
Prati Prayato
Am
Mama
Arayan Saptaratrad
Yan
Yam Dharyan Saptaratrad
Krishta Sankarshanam Vibhum.
Drashta Sankarshanam Vibhum.
Thank you. First, Narad Muni says to King Chitraketu that Etam mantra Upanishadam. I am giving you a small Upanishad. So basically this set of mantras is a Upanishad. And it is mentioned in the next chapter. We will recite one verse from that Upanishad. It is about from 18th to 25th verse. So that is 8 mantras are there, which is a tiny mini Upanishad right in the Srimad Bhagavatam. We will recite one mantra. So he gives this small Upanishad comprising of 8 mantras to King Chitraketu. And what does he say? Praticha prayato mama. That you accept. Praticha means to accept it. Prayato mama, with great attention, you accept it from me. So mantra has to be accepted. That's why we always get the mantra from a guru. At the time of initiation, the guru initiates into what is known as the Harinam Diksha. But we can start chanting the Maha Mantra. The Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is public. It's not a secret mantra. So even before we get it from guru, we have gotten it from Srila Prabhupada. So we can start chanting the mantra. So that is what he's saying. Narad Muni is taking the position of the guru, saying, here is a mantra, you chant it. And Yam Dharayan Saptaratrad. Dharan means to accept or to embody or to embrace the mantra for 7 nights. Saptaratrad. So for 7 nights, Drishta Sankarshanam Vibhum. You will be able to see Drishta. Who you will be able to see? Lord Sankarshana. All right. So that is the mercy of Narada Muni, that he's giving the process and he is giving the mercy that you take this. Now, if you and I chant this mantra seriously for 7 nights or 7 days, we might not see Lord Sankarshan. So that is the mercy of Narad Muni on King Chitraketu. The Upanishad is right there in Bhagavatam. Okay. So we need the mercy of the Guru. We cannot do anything based on our own whims and fancies. Our Guru has given the mantra of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. That is what we should accept. That is what we should chant. So whatever our Guru has given, that we should do. We should not do things based on our own whims and fancies. In the Shastras, there are so many mantras. Which one will you chant? Just like for any kind of disease, there are, if Jai Satchidanand Prabhu was here and I asked him, Prabhuji, what are all the medications for cancer? He will give you a whole book. But based on your particular type of cancer, then the doctor has to tell that, yes, this is the medicine that you should take. You cannot just open the book and say, let me try this one, let me try that one. Then you'll be... It's not a good outcome. All right. So who will read the next?
I will try.
Yes, please go ahead on the Zoom.
The great sage Narada continued, my dear king, attentively receive from me a mantra which is most auspicious. After accepting it from me, in 7 nights, you will be able to see the Lord face to face.
Very nice. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
All right. So that is the ending of 15th chapter. So now this is the conversation that Narad Muni and Angira Muni are having with King Chitraketu. But his wife is still very, very agitated, very upset. Agitated means not like cranky, but whatever, upset and very in just tremendous misery because of losing her son. So acharyas have explained, though this is not directly in Srimad Bhagavatam, that she is not happy or she is not contented as Chitraketu Maharaj is becoming contented, accepting the situation. So then the rishis ask, what would you like to do? What would you like to have? She says, really, the only thing that I would like to have is my son. Nothing else will be able to cure my misery. So you say, okay, sure, no problem. Here is your son. So they bring the son back to life. That was the picture that we were showing earlier. So let us see what happens when the sun comes back to life. So when the sun comes back to life, what happens? Does he say, oh, my father and mother, I was taken away by Yamraj, I didn't want to go? No, he does not say that. So he says, I have been wandering through all these various forms of life, millions and millions of them. In every single birth, I had a mother and a father. I can't even remember in which life were you my mother or father. Like they are saying, I'm your mother, I'm your father. Even Narad Muni is saying, these are your mother and father. He just says, he just looks blankly like, which one? Like, if some like stranger comes to your house and says, I'm your childhood friend. And you'll say like, wait a minute. Hindi में बोलते हैं ना आप कौन मान न मान मैं तेरा मेहमान, right? So that was the situation. Like he was like completely blank. He's like, who are you? I don't recognize you. And that is when the parents realize the temporariness of relationships, how temporary these relationships are. They were so attached to the son, but just after quitting the body, that soul became completely detached. And the soul needs a body to talk. Rishis brought them back to that same body, but it does not mean that his or that soul's attachments came back. In the body, he came back so that he could have a conversation. But the attachments are gone as soon as the soul quits the body. The attachments are gone. The attachments are very, very, very bodily. As soon as one quits the body, the attachments are also quit. So better to try to remove our attachments before we quit the body. And at the time of quitting the body, the attachments trouble us the most. More than the pain of quitting the body, it is about quitting our attachments. There is some funny story I was hearing. Attachments or aversions. Some person, I can't even remember where I was hearing, some person was about to die and he had great hatred for another person. And he was almost in a coma, and in his last breath, this is probably just a joke or whatever, I don't know if it's a real incident, he got up and opened his eyes and looked at his son who was next to him and said, make sure you make that guy suffer, or something against that guy, and he died. I mean, like in the last minute, I mean, you're going to die, nothing is going to matter. But at the last minute, your attachments or your hatreds are so prominent that it is so hard to cut them off. Or attachments. one is about to die, but still one is holding on to the attachments. So these attachments, so when they heard the son talk like this, they became peaceful. Their attachments were also cut. So let us see this verse, that how the son spoke. So in the second verse, I'll just scroll up a little, scroll down rather. We will not read the full verse, even though I intended to. But Sri Narada Muni said, as you can see here, O living entity. So he is calling him as Jiva Atman. He's not calling him by the name as the boy's name, but Jiva. O living entity, all good fortune unto you. Just see your father and mother. All your friends and relatives are overwhelmed with grief because of your passing away. So he's saying to the Jiva like this. He's trying to make him recognize, because he just came back into his body. And next line, he says that because you died untimely, the balance of your lifetime still is remaining. Therefore, you may re-enter your body and enjoy the remainder of your life surrounded by friends and relatives. Accept the royal throne and all the opulences given by your father. So he's saying you can enter the body, you can live a full life, you can become the king, you will have a full life and you will enjoy. Now, this does not mean that his life was taken away untimely. This is just to show, Narad Muni is telling to the relatives that yes, I can bring him back. If he wants, he can stay. It won't be a abnormal, it won't be like a ghostly existence, like a ghost or some abnormal, some. They are saying this mainly to convince the parents that if the child wants, he can have a perfectly normal life. But if somebody is killed by someone else, that is the ending of his life. It does not mean that his life was forcibly cut short. I don't want to go into a tangent discussion, but maybe later we can have. A suicide is a different matter when one takes his own life. Okay, but this kind of murder or some kind of this kind of killing is the arrangement of by providence or destiny or karma or yamaraj, whatever arrangement has been made, and then whoever is the doer of that crime will again suffer his part of it, and the cycle continues. Like my two sons, one hits the other, then he hits him, then he hits him, then he hits him. And if you try to go back, you will go back to birth. So, yeah, those who have more than one child will know this. So there is no ending. It's anadi, beginningless. So you cannot trace it back. It started whenever it started, but right now, so that keeps going on. Okay. So let's see what the boy says. Very, very impactful verse. Please try to imagine, put yourself in the shoes of Maharaja Chitraketu. And you have just got your son back. Pretty miraculous thing. Nobody gets a dead son alive. And Narad Muni has convinced them that this is not some ghost. It's not some abnormal affair. This is, he can have a normal life. I really brought him back to life. Okay. So then the Jiva says, Jiva Uvacha. So it's, see, it says Jiva Uvacha. Doesn't say as Shishu Uvacha, the boy, or by the name. Jiva, the soul is speaking through the medium or the senses of the body of the child. So please let us recite these wonderful verses from Srimad Bhagavatam. Jiva Uvacha.
Jiva Uvacha.
Tasmin Janmanyami Mahyam.
Tasmin Janmanyami Mahyam.
Pitaro Mataro Bhavan.
Pitaro Mataro Bhavan.
Karmabhir Bhramyamanasya.
कर्मभिर्भ्राम्यमाणस्य
devatiryanri yonishu.
देवतिर्यं योनिषु.
So what does the Jiva say? Jiva uvacha. What does he say? Kasmin janmanyami mahyam. In which of my births? Kasmin means which one? Janmani means in which janma? Mahyam of mine. It means I have had so many janmas. So in which of my janmas? So number is not being said million or billion or thousand, but just unlimited number of my janmas have been there. Pitaro mataro bhavan. In which of my janmas were you my pita and you my mata? He's speaking this to the supposed mother and father, Chitraketu and Kritadyuti. And then he says, Karma bhir brahmayamanasya. Brahmayan matlab, you must understand, ghumna, right? Brahman. You understand Brahman? Is it there in Telugu, Mataji? So Brahman means to wander around. So brahmayamanasya karma bhir. Because of my karma, I have been wandering into what? Deva tiryanri yonishu. Into different yonis. Yoni means species. And what kind of species? Deva means higher species. Tiryan means lower species. Birds, animals, and all. And Ri means the middle species, which is the human species. So in these large three categories are there of species. I have been wandering around in all these species based on my karma. So we have, again, this is all very standard Bhagavad Gita topics that most of you are very familiar with. That when you do good karma, you get higher species. You can go even up to Swargaloka. But finally, after long time of enjoyment, you come back to Martya Loka, 9.24. So in all these yonis, I have been going up and down, and each of these births, I had a mother and father. Which one are you? So King Chitraketu and Kritadyuti are shattered on hearing this. And then in the next several verses, he describes how the soul keeps going, wandering in all these species, and how one is attached in each life to their relatives. But as soon as death occurs, that attachment is gone. The example that he gives is that of a pet that many people have. So human life is longer than a pet's life. Though when one pet dies, there is some, lamentation. Then you get a new pet. Then you forget the old one. So in one life, we get attachment to one pet, to another pet, to another pet, but life goes on. So in the same way, we have attachments in our human relationships, and this is very, very temporary. So when they heard this, their attachments were completely gone. The attachment of King Chitraketu and mother and Kritadyuti, they were completely broken, and they let him go. The soul leaves the body. They cremate the body nicely, and then we will see what happens next after the cremation. So next verse that we want to cover is the 12th verse. Okay, we didn't read the translation of this one, so let us read that. Yeah. So this time in the room, can somebody read the translation? Lokanshu, you would like to read? Loud, clear, and slow. Louder.
By the mystic power of Narada Muni, the living entity reinserted his dead body for a short time and spoke in reply to Narada Muni's request. He said, according to the results of my human activities, I, the living being, transmigrate from one body to another, sometimes going into the species of demigods, sometimes into the species of lower animals, sometimes among the vegetables, and sometimes to the human species. Therefore, in which birth were these my mother and father? No one is actually my mother and father. How can I accept these two as my parents?
Very nice. So, of course, Srila Prabhupada is giving a little bit extended translation, but so that many of us read Srimad Bhagavatam and skip the purports. And that's okay. And Srila Prabhupada also knew that his books will be read in that way. So he's trying to give a little bit of extra meaning through the translations itself. Okay. So there is absolutely nothing wrong in that. It is in fact beneficial. So like this, the attachment of Maharaja Chitraketu and Kritadyuti is completely shattered. So the purpose of why I selected this this verse is that, I mean, there are many parents I can see here, and some are yet to be parents. But those who are yet to be parents can imagine themselves to be children. You have definitely, everybody has mother and father. So there is that bond of affection. So please imagine how hard it is to break this bond, isn't it? Parents can, children are a little bit more detached from parents. Okay, like my children are in college, we have to chase them down, call us. So that's how it happens. So parents are more attached, and that's law of nature. But please try to imagine how hard it is to cut this bond. Is it easy? The loss of a child is the greatest loss for a parent. So to give up this attachment for Maharaj Chitraketu and Kritadyuti, such a completely shocking incident had to happen. Can you imagine the kind of the miracle that occurred there? A dead child came back to life and then started speaking like this. And this great shock had to occur in their life for them to get detached. Now, like we say, God forbid, Bhagawaan na kare, if something like that happens in our life, or even something smaller of lesser magnitude, okay? Do you think such a miracle will happen in our life? Narada Muni will come and completely like undo the bad things and just completely make everything fine to make us happy? Will it happen? Very, very low chance, almost zero chance, right? But this whole episode, this whole incident has been recorded in Srimad Bhagavatam for our benefit, so that we can learn from this how to build up our spiritual strength, so that we shouldn't be in the same position as Maharaj Chitraketu, to not have to, or to have such a big shock in their life and be completely devastated. Now, his shock was also very big. He was, first of all, the emperor of the whole earth. And more than having a son, it is about continuing the, having an heir to the throne, who will rule the earth, who will be the next king. That is a one of the responsibilities of a king. And that too, he did not have a child, even though he had so many wives. Any child, boy or girl. So his situation was quite different. And plus he lost his child. So hopefully such a thing will not happen in our life, but smaller things could happen. But the point is that such a miracle will not happen to solve that problem. So it completely behooves us to build the spiritual strength from the instructions of Narada Muni, from the instructions of Srimad Bhagavatam, so that we can cut the attachments or we have the strength to cut the attachments if such a thing happens, or to not have such strong attachments, whichever way you want to look. So that is the learning for us, that we should not expect such a miracle. Instead, we should build the spiritual strength in advance. That is the learning. So whatever effect you will see here in this verse, the cutting of the attachments, that same effect can happen by seriously investing our time in Krishna Bhakti. In the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says this, how the tree of attachment, the roots are so strong, but through bhakti, those roots can be cut. That is one of the main points of 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. All right. So let us recite this verse. So Badarayana, who is Badarayana? Shukadev Goswami. So now again the scene is shifting. So Shukadev Goswami is telling to Parikshit Maharaj. So Shri Badarayanir Uvacha.
Sri Badarayana Uvacha
Itya Udirya Gato Jivo.
Itya Udirya Gato Jivo
Gyatayastasya te tada.
Yatiyastasya te
Vismita
tada
mumuchuh shokam.
Vismita Mumuchu Shokam
Chitva Atma Sneha Shrinkhalam.
Chitva Atmasneha Srinkhalam.
So Shri Badarayanir Uvacha. So Shukadev Goswami says that Iti Udirya Gato Jivo. After speaking like this, Udirya means to speak. Iti means like this. Gato Jivo. That Jiva. So till the 11th verse, this is the 12th verse. Till 11th verse, he was speaking. The Jiva. Gato means he left. He left the body. Gyatayas tasya te tada. And he left. In what way he left? The Jiva left his relatives. Gyatayas means those who he was supposed to know. Gyata means to know. So his knowers, his so-called relatives, he left at that time. What is happening to the relatives? Mother and father primarily. Vismita. Vismita means shocked. Vismaya. What is another word? Srila Prabhupada says astonished, shocked, perplexed. Like what happened here? You know, the boy had died and then he came back and he said all these out of the world things and then he left. So there was this big vismaya, big miracle had just occurred. But the result was mumuchuhu shokam. Their shoka, their misery, their lamentation, their sadness, mumuchuhu means it was taken away. They gave up. And chitva atma sneha shrinkhalam. Chitva means to cut. Shrinkhala, what is shrinkhala? What is a shrinkhala? Those who know some Hindi.
Birth and rebirth,
Series,
rebirth.
or we can
death,
say a
birth.
chain. Shrinkhala means series or a chain, right? So, chitva atma sneha shrinkhala. That this kind of episode, it cut off the chain of attachment, atma sneha, the attachment that they had to the sun. That chain of attachment, that such a strong chain, shrinkhala, chain of attachment, atma sneha was cut, chitva. So they became very peaceful. When this conversation didn't bring back the son to the life, it did, but the end result was that the parents became peaceful at the loss of their son. So that was the end result of this discussion between the son or the jiva and the parents. So then on seeing all this, even the wives, the co-wives of Kritadyuti, they who had hatched this plan to poison the sun, they also became very affected. Affected means positively affected. And they even confessed their crime to the king. And the king had become, very detached from all this. So he was not interested in punishing them or something like that. Too much was going on at that, the situation was far beyond any of these things like, punishing. But anyway, the wives were also deeply affected, and they went to the banks of Yamuna river, and it is written in the Bhagavatam that they did severe atonement for their sin. What happened to them, whether they were atoned or not, it's not known, but that's what happened to the wives. And the king finally now receives the mantras. In the previous section we heard that Narada Muni says, I'm going to give you the mantras, the mantra Upanishad, the small tiny 8-verse Upanishad. So we will read 2 verses from that Upanishad, and we will relish 2 verses which are 18 and 19. So from 18 to 25 is what Maharaj Chitraketu recites for 7 nights, 7 days and nights. So these are the beginning 2 verses of the prayers that Narad Muni gave to Chitraketu Maharaj. Okay. Did we do the translation of this one? Okay, so this time on Zoom, somebody can do. Those who have not done before.
May
I
May
want
I?
to give chance to those who have not done before.
May I?
Sure, please go ahead.
Sri Sukdev Goswami continued. When the conditioned soul, that is Jiva, in the form of Maharaj Chitraketu's son, had spoken in this way and then left, Chitraketu and the other relatives of the dead son were all astonished. Thus, they cut off the shackles of their affection, which was due to their relationship with him, and gave up their lamentations.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
All right. So now we will go to the 2 verses of the beginning of the prayers given to Chitraketu Maharaj by Narada Muni. So please recite. These are more or less self-explanatory. So let us recite these beautiful prayers. Om Namastubhyam Bhagavate
Om Namastubhyam Bhagavate
Vasudevaya Dhimahi
Vasudevaya Dhimahi
Pradyumnaya Aniruddhaya
Pradyumnaya Aniruddhaya
Namah Sankarshanaya Cha
Namah Sankarshanaya Cha
Namo Vijnana Matraya
Namo Vijnanamatraya
Paramananda Murtaye
Paramananda Murtaye
Atma Ramaya Shantaya
Atma Ramaya Shantaya
Nivritta Dvaita Drishtaye.
Nivrittadvaita Drishtaye.
So, according to the boon, this was the second boon and much bigger one. First boon was what? Okay, so maybe 3 boons then. First boon was to get the sun, the original sun, sort of, first time. Second boon was to get back the sun. Now is the best one, to see Lord Sankarshana. This is what one should really ask for. How can I see God? The saints will very happily answer that question. They will see your level and they will give you the right instructions. So Chitraketu Maharaj was already at an advanced level, So he got these mantras, and then so that he could see Lord Sankarshana. So the translation, as you can see, Om Namastubhyam Bhagavate Vasudevaya Dhimahi Pradyumnaya Aniruddhaya Namah Sankarshanaya Cha. So very, self-explanatory. Now here one can see that the four Chaturvyuha expansions, the quadruple expansions are mentioned. So you can see Om Namastubhyam Bhagavate Vasudevaya Dhimahi. So the first quadruple expansion is Vasudeva. Pradyumnaya Aniruddhaya. These are the another two quadruple expansions. Sankarshanaya Cha, the fourth quadruple expansion. So I just found this picture here. Let me show it on the Zoom also. So these are known as the quadruple expansions of the Lord. And in the purport we will read just now. They are the four quadruple, the Chaturvyuha expansions as identified by the various paraphernalia that they hold in their hands. That is one of their main distinguishing factors. Plus there is the purpose that each of these expansions serves is also different. So that's a whole long discussion to be had at a different time. But among that, Lord Sankarshana was the one that appeared in front of Maharaja Chitraketu. For more details, just for those that may be interested, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 5, verse numbers 40 and 41 have very deep and detailed description. There's a long purports, two purports by Srila Prabhupada, which explain these Chaturvyuha or the quadruple expansions of the Lord. So I will stop this sharing and we will go back to the Veda-based sharing. And let us quickly read the translation and the first few lines of the purport. So who would like to read in the room? I saw Shibani somewhere. Okay. Go ahead and read. Would you like to read the translation? And then Sukhi, I will request you to read the first few lines of the purport. Loud, slow, clear.
Narada gave Chitraketu the following mantra. O Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, who are addressed by the Omkara Pranava, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. O Lord Vasudeva, I meditate upon you. O Lord Pradyumna, Lord Aniruddha, and Lord Sankarshana, I offer you my respectful obeisances. O reservoir of spiritual potency, O supreme bliss, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who are self-sufficient and most peaceful. O ultimate truth, one without a second, you are realized as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagawaan, and are therefore the reservoir of all knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances.
Thank you. So we will read the first paragraph, just the first para. Would you?
In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that he is Pranava Sarva Vedeshu. The syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. In transcendental knowledge, the Lord is addressed as Pranava Omkara, which is symbolic representation of the Lord in sound. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So this explanation that Srila Prabhupada is giving is for the word Om. If you see the verse or this starts with Om, Om Namastubhyam Bhagavate. So this explanation that Srila Prabhupada gave is for that first word. Now he will continue with Vasudeva and the other Chaturvyuha expansions. Okay, continue.
Who is an expansion of Narayana, expands himself as Pradyumna, Angira, and Sankarshana. From Sankarshana comes a second Narayana expansion. And from this Narayana come further expansions of Vasudeva, Pradyumna, Sankarshana, and Angira. Sankarshana Krishna in this group is the original cause of the three Purushas, namely
Karanodakshai Vishnu,
Karnadakshai Vishnu, Garbhodakshai Vishnu, and Chudakshai Vishnu. Chudakshai Vishnu is situated in every universe in a special planet called
Shweta Dvipa.
Shwetadvipa. This is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita, Ardantanas Andantanas. The word Anda means this universe. Within this universe is a planet called Shwetadvipa, where Chudakshai Vishnu is situated. From him come all the incarnations within this universe.
All right, thank you. So basically, the reason I read this is to get an understanding of who is Sankarshana and what is his relationship to that original person, Narayana. So Srila Prabhupada has given a brief explanation here, and the details are available in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So that is who Maharaja Chitraketu got the darshan of. Okay, so now after reciting these prayers for 7 days and 7 nights continuously, Maharaj Chitraketu gets darshan of Lord Sankarshana. Now, Lord Sankarshana, who do we more popularly know him as? Lord Balaram, right? And what is his color? Blue? White. Okay, Lord Krishna is blue. Lord Sankarshana or Balaram is white. And what kind of clothes he wears? Blue clothes he wears. So we will see how Lord Sankarshana appears. So these are very beautiful verses of how Lord Sankarshana appeared to Maharaj Chitraketu finally after 7 days. Okay, so we will read 3 verses, 30, 31, and 32. So verse number 30, and my wife has prepared the recitation or the meterized chanting of the verse. So she will lead and we can follow. But so before that, verse number 30 describes the vision, just the sweet vision of Lord Sankarshana as Maharaj Chitraketu saw. So that is the first verse, that number 30. And then 31 and 32 are going to describe the situation of Maharaj Chitraketu upon seeing the Lord. Now, please try to understand, for 7 nights, first of all, a big thing happened in his life, such a big thing. And then he was able to cut the detachment. And he very clearly at that point understood better than anybody else at that point how important it is to really invest all your energy in the most supreme goal, not to have an heir to the throne, not to have a child, not to have all these things, but to develop bhakti for Bhagawaan. So when he actually saw the realization of his effort to see the Lord, one of the realizations of bhakti is, or one of the culminations, the prize, so to say, of the process of bhakti is to be able to see Bhagawaan. So when he sees Bhagawaan, what is his situation? And we will discuss a little bit about how we can see Bhagawaan. I have no hope of seeing Bhagawaan like this, like Chitraketu Maharaj saw. So how can we see Bhagawaan? So before that, let us recite 3 verses. So first verse is, what is the first verse?
30. 30.
No, 30, but what is the content or the vision of the Lord, how the Lord appears. And the next 2 verses are what he is feeling, what is his situation. So very nicely, I found these to be very touching and very beautiful. So let us recite these 2 verses. Mridala Gauram
Gauram
Shrivasa Samsara
Shritivasam Spura
Kirita Keyur Katit Kankanam Prasanna Vaktam
Channavaktarana Lochanamritam
Tadarsha
Madarsa
Siddheshwara
Siddheshwara
Mandalai
Mandalai
Prabhum.
Prabhum.
So, in this verse, Mrinala Gauram Shitivasasam Sfurat. So, Mrinala Gauram means he was white, like the fibers in the stem of the lotus. If you take the stem of a lotus and you break it open, you will see very white fibers. So let me stop this sharing and you can appreciate here. Let me share a picture which I found. So here in this picture, you can see this is Chitraketu Maharaj and this is Lord Sankarshana. So as we are reading the vision of Chitraketu Maharaj, and it's not just a vision, I don't mean to say it's like some illusion, but what is being described is what Chitraketu Maharaj is seeing. You can see some devotees have drawn this picture and they have drawn it based on this verse. So Mrinala Gauram means Lord Sankarshan was very white and wearing Shiti Vasasam blue garments made of blue silk. And what was glittering on him? The Sfurat means glittering. Kirita. Kirita means like a huge mukut, big mukut, not a small one. Kirit means big mukut. So you can see a big mukut here on the Lord. With Keyura. Keyura means armlets. These things that you wear on the arms, not bracelets. Bracelets you wear on the brace. These are the armlets. Katitra means a belt. You can see a belt here also, a golden belt on the waist, or not on the waist, but on the stomach. And Kankanam means bangles. Now you see these bangles which are on the wrist. And he is Prasanna Vaktra. Prasanna Vaktra means with a smiling face. And Aruna Lochanam means with Lochana means eyes. Aruna is red color. So having red eyes. So I don't know if you can see, maybe I also cannot see very clearly, but there's a red tinge in the eyes. And the most important thing is that he was surrounded by Vritam Siddheshwara Mandala. Siddheshwara Mandala. Mandala means group. Siddheshwara means of Siddhas. And acharyas explain that this Siddheshwara Mandal here refers to the 4 Kumaras. They are the perfect Siddhas. So we can see the 4 Kumaras, the 4 young boys. Sanak Sanatana, Sanat Kumar and Sanat Sanatana, Sanandana and Sanat Kumar. So these are the 4 Kumaras that appeared along with the Lord. The Lord never appears alone. He always appears with Siddha Mandala, with his group of devotees, Siddheshwara Mandala. Then what is the situation of Maharaj Chitraketu? So let us see that. Swastha Malanta Karanodhayanmuni Pravriddha Bhaktya
Pranayasulochana
Prahrishta Roman
Radipurusham.
So what happened? Tad darshana dhvasta samasta kilbisha. Kilbisha means muchyante sarva kilbishaihi, means what? All the sinful, all the sins are removed. So kilbisha means sins. This was a thing from Bhagavad Gita. So kilbisha means all the sins. So tad darshana dhvasta samasta kilbishaha. Upon seeing the form of that form of the Lord, all the samasta, all of the burden of kilbisha, of the sins, were what? Dhvasta. Dhvasta means destroyed. So that is first thing. And swastha malanta karano abhyayan munihi. This King Chitraketu is like a muni at this point. And his swastha malanta karano means that in the core of his heart became completely swastha, free of any contamination. So it became completely, his heart became completely purified. And then pravriddha bhaktya pranayashru lochana. So with a lot of devotion and bhakti, pravriddha bhaktya, with lot of bhakti, what came in his eyes? Pranaya ashru lochana, that tears of love. Ashru lochana, pranaya ashru lochana. Tears of love came in his eyes. And prahristya romana. So Roma, so we say Roma Harshana. Roma Harshana means the hair standing on end. So here it has been reversed. Prahrishta Roma. And he offered obeisances. Roma. He offered Namaha. Roma Namad. So he offered Nama. Mam Namaskuru. So he offered obeisances to Adi Purusham, to the Supreme Lord Sankarshana. So we will read the translation later as we complete the 3 verses. And the third verse is even more, in my opinion, beautiful. All of them are beautiful, but here we see that he is trying to, when the devotee sees the Lord, the tendency is to speak some prayers, to say some prayers for the Lord. But for a long time, he was so choked. Sometimes, when you're speaking, and we see it on TV also, or somebody, some person is speaking and he's speaking about something that he's very emotional about, and he stops for some time for the emotion to subside, and then you continue speaking, isn't it? So that is what happened. The Lord is standing in front of him and he's completely choked. He cannot even speak anything. For a long time, he could not say anything. So that is the essence, or the sort of the mood that is coming out in this verse. So let us recite this one also. Sa uttama shloka padabja vishtaram prema shruleshay premo paruddha khilavarna nirmamo naiva shakattam samidhitam. So, sa uttama shloka padabja vishtaram. That vishtaram means the place at which what was kept? Padabja, the feet of who? Uttama shloka means the Lord. The place at which the feet were of the Lord, what was happening? Prema ashru, tears of love. Prema ashru leshair upamehayan muhu. That place became completely wet with the tears of love that were muhu, means they were just constantly coming and coming. So it was like a constant flow of tears of love from the eyes of Chitraketu Maharaj, and it made that whole area where the Lord's feet were completely wet. And prema uparuddha akhila varna nirgamo, that these words, the words that Chitraketu Maharaj wanted to say, were not coming out because he was prema uparuddha. Prema uparuddha means he was just completely choked with love. And naiva shakattam means due to this, he could not offer prayers prasimeditum chiram. So prasameditum means to offer prayers. Chiram means long time. We say chiranjeevi. Chiranjeevi means may you have a long life. So chiram means long time. Chiranjeeva means long life. Jiva, jivana. So chiram, for a long time, he was completely choked because of his emotions and because of his love for the Lord. And then follow the prayers. Next several verses are the prayers of the Lord. And I want to cover one particular prayer. So let us read the translations first, and then I will come to the prayer to the Lord. So we will go on for maybe, I know it is 7:30, another 5-7 minutes, and we will be done. So on who would like to read the translation? Somebody maybe who has not read before, I would like to request to increase
Yes,
the
Prabhuji.
participation.
Can I read?
Can I read?
Yes, who is that? Is that Monica?
Yes.
Oh, very, very nice to hear your sound or voice after such a long time. So go ahead and read 30, and then somebody else for 31 can get ready, and then 32.
Okay. Translation. Upon reaching the shelter of Lord Shisha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Chitraketu saw that he was as white as the white fibers of a lotus flower. He was dressed in bluish garments and adorned with a brilliantly glittering helmet, armlets, belt, and bangles. His face was smiling and his eyes were reddish. He was surrounded by such
Exalted.
exalted, liberated persons as Sanat Kumar.
Thank you. Okay, next one who would like to read? If Nitya is there, can she read? And if Parnika is there, can she read? If not, somebody else.
You want to read? I unmute to read.
Yes, go ahead.
As translation, as soon as Maharaja Chitraketu saw the Supreme Lord, he was cleansed of all material contamination and situated in his original Krishna consciousness, being completely purified. He became silent and grave, and because of love for the Lord, tears fell from his eyes and his hair stood on end. With great devotion and love, he offered his respectful obeisances unto the original personality of Godhead.
Thank you. Very nice. Okay, next one. Is Nitya available, or otherwise some other young youth can read? Okay, then we can have somebody in the room here read. Who's there? I'm looking at the children first, but okay, Mataji, go ahead and read.
With tears of love and affection, Chitraketu repeatedly moistened the resting place of the Supreme Lord's lotus feet because his voice was choked in ecstasy. For a considerable time, he was unable to utter any of the letters of the alphabet to offer the Lord suitable prayers.
Thank you. Thank you, Mataji. So in the previous verse, purport, very nicely, Srila Prabhupada has said, how can we see the Lord? Now, Chitraketu Maharaj was very advanced spiritually. Of course, he encountered a very grave setback in his life. And because of which he got very sad, he became very in a lot of anxiety, in a lot of suffering, but that was removed and he could see the Lord. But we are not in that situation. So how can we see the Lord? That is the question. And the answer is we can see the form of the Lord in the temple. We can start there. many people, when they go to the temple, maybe some beginner people, they look at other things. Oh, the temple is very big. Oh, that temple where I went was much smaller. Or this one is smaller, that one is bigger. That one has marble, it looks very new. This one is not so new. This looks like some, wooden floor versus marble floor. Or they may look like, whatever things, these kind of things one may look at. And is the prasadam simple or is it very opulent? The main focus of the temple are the presiding or are the owners of the temple, whose house it is. You go, if you come to my house and you look at everything else and I'm standing right in the middle, but you're looking everywhere else, I will not feel very nice, isn't it? It's not a mark of respect, or it's not the correct, just proper etiquette that you have come to my house and you're looking at everywhere else and I'm standing right in the middle and you're not even looking. So the temple is the Lord's house and he's standing, he's not hidden in some room. He's standing right there in the middle. You can't miss, but we seem to miss, or we seem to not appreciate, or just give one look and then most of the time we spend looking at everything else. So we can start by looking at the Lord in the temple. And Srila Prabhupada is saying gradually, when we look at the Lord, and we look at the Lord as if we are looking at the actual Supreme Lord, whose Vigraha, whose form, whether it is in metal or wood or stone or any other, even a painting, it is present in the temple. We should look as if this is like if when you look at the picture of your child, for parents whose children have gone to college, or a more very sort of a more sort of severe situation is a soldier who is on the battlefront and he's looking at the picture of his family, and he's fighting there and he's looking at the picture of his family back home. He doesn't think that this is a picture, even though he's looking at a picture and the wife and the child are not his real wife in the picture. That picture cannot speak, but the bhava, the feelings that come in his mind or in his heart are no different than if, or very much similar to as if they are there. So like that, if we see the deity of the Lord, then slowly and slowly our bhakti will increase and it will become stronger. And it is not that you have to go to a marble temple, a rich temple, a very big temple, the size of the temple. The Lord in all the temples is the same. So anytime we can sit and do kirtan of the Lord. For you, it's nice to travel to places like Tirupati and all that, but there, you get darshan for like 2 seconds. You just look, Govinda, and then the person will push you away. So that 2 seconds is very blissful. But here the Lord is standing for, in our Portland Hillsborough temple, and nobody is, spending the time in the temple and looking at the Lord, or, there is nobody's pushing you away. You can stand and look for 2 hours, not 2 seconds. So Lord is the same everywhere. And by looking at the Lord, whether it is an old picture or a brilliant, nice new 4K picture, or a small old picture, whatever, the bhav is the same that comes in the mind of the soldier when he is on the battlefront. He doesn't feel like, oh, I should have had a more high resolution picture. So it doesn't matter. It's the same Lord. So like that, we can increase our devotion. So I will read would anybody like to read the translation or the purport here?
Can I, Prabhuji?
I'm looking at some children in the room to see. There were 2 children that came. I think they went downstairs. Surya and okay. Yes, you can read, Mataji, then.
The word tad darshanam, dhavastha, samastha,
Samarstha kilchai.
is very important in this verse. If one regularly see the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the temple, one will gradually be disinfected of all material desires simply by visiting the temple and seeing the deity. When one is freed from all the results of sinful activities, one will be purified, and with a healthy mind completely cleansed, he will increasingly make progress in Krishna consciousness.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mataji. Thank you very much. So by visiting the temple and seeing the deity, one will gradually be disinfected from all the material desires and make progress in his Krishna consciousness. Okay. Then we will read did we read the translation of 32? Yes, we read that. Okay. Did we? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Then let me see what is okay. So finally, we will just read the translation of number 40. I wanted to read the verse itself, but for lack of time, we will just read the translation. In this verse, so these are, then Chitraketu Maharaj actually starts speaking. He gets his voice back, he gets composed, and he starts speaking some very nice prayers. And in these prayers, he is talking about Bhagavata Dharma. So he is basically saying that, my dear Lord, you are so wonderful. You are Ajita. You are unconquerable. And being unconquerable, you have conquered the rest of the world. How have you conquered the rest of the world? By establishing Bhagavat Dharma. Bhagavat Dharma means the Dharma as established through the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then he is saying that by following this Dharma, you have enabled everybody to make very quick spiritual progress. So basically in this verse, Chitraketu Maharaj is glorifying the importance of Bhagavat Dharma, which is pure devotional service or Krishna Bhakti. So I will quickly read the translation here. O unconquerable one, when you spoke about the Bhagavat Dharma, which is the uncontaminated religious system for achieving the shelter of your lotus feet, that was your victory. Persons who have no material desires, like the four Kumaras, who are self-satisfied sages, worship you to be liberated from material contamination. In other words, they accept the process of Bhagavat Dharma to achieve shelter at your lotus feet. So that is the process, the Bhagavata Dharma, the process of Krishna Bhakti is the process. And in this purport, Srila Prabhupada has given three extremely important verses, which everybody should, we have discussed these many times, but we will just recite these three verses. I will recite it. And these are verses which glorify the topmost method of bhakti. So the first one is Anya Abhilashita Shunyam. I'm sure many of you have heard about this. Anya Abhilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmadi Anavritam Anukulyena Krishnanushilanam Bhaktir Uttama. That the topmost type of bhakti, Uttama Bhakti, Bhaktir Uttama, is when Anya Abhilashita Shunyam. You have no other desires. Abhilashita means desires. No other. Anya Abhilashita. Any other desires are what? Shunyam, zero. And the only desire that you have is Anukulyena Krishnanushilanam. That those desires you have which are aligned to Lord Krishna, which means you are doing what Lord Krishna is instructing you to do. That is Uttama Bhakti. The next verse is also extremely important. By the way, both these verses are from another very important scripture called Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And those who are doing Bhakti Shastri, these verses are the memorization verses, very important ones. So this next one is Sarva Upadhir Vinirmuktam Tat Paratvena Nirmalam Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhaktir Uchyate. That what is the another definition of the topmost kind of bhakti is Sarva Upadhi Vinirmuktam, giving up all our material designations. I am this, I am that, I have so much money, I have this position, I have this title, this, that, whatever it may be. Our little designations may be there. In the temple also, you may say, oh, my duty is to clean this toilet. Your job may be to clean a toilet, which is the lowest thing, but people are proud about that. Why did you clean it? I was supposed to clean it. Or if you see somebody cleaning, no, you're not doing it properly. Let me teach you how to clean. So much pride, so much. I mean, if it's done with the proper bhava, with the proper consciousness, it's fine. But if done with like, oh, I am proud about how much I am doing this little thing, and thou shalt not encroach on my little, kingdom, that becomes your upadhi. It's point I'm trying to make. It is no upadhi. What is an upadhi in cleaning a toilet? But people can become proud about, like Prabhupada says, even a beggar is proud about his penny. He may have just a penny, but he's very proud about it. My penny. So giving up all those things and using all your senses, Rishi Kena, Rishi Kesha, for the service of the Lord, Sevanam, for serving the Lord, that is Uttama Bhakti. And this is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, the 6th verse from the 1st canto, 2nd chapter. Savai pumsham paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhokshajay ahaituki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. Another very famous verse. That savai pumsham paro dharmo, that for the human mankind, pumsham means mankind. Paro dharmo, the topmost dharma. What is the topmost dharma? Yato bhaktir adhokshaje. Adhokshaja is Lord Narayana. Bhakti to Lord Narayana is the topmost dharma. What kind of bhakti? Ahaituki and apratihata. Ahaituki means with no hetu. Hetu means no, so that, in order to. Hetu means in order to. I am doing bhakti in order to get a son. Like, or whatever, in order to get a promotion, in order to, no in order to's. Ahaituki, no hetu. Pratihata, pratihata means no breakage. Continuous, all the time. Not like do it sometime for 2 months, then forget for 6 months. Yayatma suprasidati, that gives full satisfaction and peace to the heart. So very important verses here. And the last one that we will read today is extremely important, and I didn't want to skip this one, so that is why I kept going another 2-3 minutes. Then Lord Sankarshana gives his instructions or his message to Maharaja Chitraketu. And this one verse is extremely important for all of us. And this verse is basically showing the importance of human life. How important human life is. We will keep that. Jiva already said we keep traveling Brahman into all kinds of yonis. Remember? Upper yonis, devatas, lower yonis, and the Nri. Nri means Nara yoni, or the yoni of human beings. So this yoni, this word is there, yonim. What type of yoni? Manushim yonim. Human yoni, human species. How important that is. So we will read this verse. This is our last verse for today, and then we will conclude. So, labdveha manushim yonim
Labdheya manasing yonim
jnana vijnana sambhavam
jnana vijnana sambhavam
atmanam yona buddhyeta
atmanam yona buddheta
na kvachit kshemam apnuyat.
na kvachit kshemam apnuyat.
So the meaning is labdveha manushim yonim. Labdva means what? to get. So upon getting the Manushim Yonim, upon getting the human form of life, Lord Sankarshana is telling Chitraketu Maharaj, Jnana Vijnana Sambhavam. Sambhava means what? Possible. Sambhav. Aisa sambhav hai. Means it is possible. What is possible? Jnana Vijnana. See, this is the most important point of human life or human form. You can do Jnana and Vijnana. You can understand the logic and you can think about it. You can deliberate on it. You can see whether it is applicable to me or not. You can have that whole contemplation, that thinking, Jnana Vijnana, Sambhavam. It is possible to do that in human life. Not everybody may do it, but it is possible. And only in human life. A dog cannot think, what is the purpose of my life? But a human being can think, what am I doing with my life? So, Lord Sankarshana is telling Maharaj Chitraketu that upon receiving human life, in which it is possible to do this analysis, Atmanam Yona Buddhyeta, one who does not try to understand, Buddhyeta means try to think about, use your buddhi and try to see that what is my Atmanam Yo, what is my real position, that I am not just this one life of body. What will be my next life? We save for tomorrow, right? We don't just think about day to day. Everybody thinks about, oh, if I earn so much money, I will save some for tomorrow. If you just think about today, you should spend everything today and have a good life, you know. Today will be very nice if you don't think about tomorrow. So similarly, that is the process of logic, of analysis. And those who do not do that, na kvachit kshemam apnuyat. They can never attain any success in any other life form. Human life is the only life for attaining success by doing this analysis. In any other life form, it is not possible. So this is a very, there is in the Bhagavad Gita also the importance of human life is mentioned, but it is mentioned indirectly. This is a very direct verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, where exactly the main point that Srila Prabhupada keeps repeating time and time again, that having obtained the human life, you must make proper use of it. Otherwise, in any other life form, that is not possible. You are being foolish if you are wasting human life, if you are not thinking about what is my long-term destination. So this is the direct translation of this verse. If you're not thinking about the long-term destination of your life, when you have got the human life, when it is possible to do this, then it's a gone case. Very direct verse. Such a direct verse is very rarely found. I mean, it is found, but you have to do little context setting and all that. It's very direct, very important verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. 6:16:58. This should be one of the verses that you should memorize. It's a very important verse for showing or for convincing others that how important the human life is. So somebody could read the translation. This is the last one. Loud, clear. Who would like to do? Yes. Here in the room. All right, Chad Prabhu, since you are here for the first time.
A human being can attain perfection in life by self-realization through the Vedic literature and its practical application. This is possible especially for a human being born in India, the land of piety. A man who obtains birth in such a convenient position but does not understand himself is unable to achieve the highest perfection, even if he is exalted to life in the highest planetary system.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So as you can see here, Srila Prabhupada is saying that the importance of human life, and he's adding this part of especially being born in India. where if you look at it, all the people who want spiritual progress, they come to the East. Steve Jobs went to the East. He spent a lot of time wandering in India and all that. In fact, he was the mentor of Mark Zuckerberg. There's an interview on YouTube if you search for it. And he told Mark Zuckerberg, who is the Facebook person, to go to India to do some, soul searching. And Mark Zuckerberg went to India following his, instructions. So India is considered to be the Eastern philosophy, and within that, India is considered to be the capital of spiritual knowledge. The capital for material knowledge is the West, but the capital for spiritual knowledge is the East. And as you can see here in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Prabhupada is quoting this verse where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is none other than Krishna, is directly calling out to the people of India to take on this mantle to spread spiritual education throughout the world. So he says here, Bharata Bhumite Haila, Bharata Bhumi. And this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu 500 years ago. And that time there was very much, divisions of all the countries and everything. So Bharat means, the Bharata Bhumi means that Bhumi of India. At Chitraketu Maharaja's time, it was the earth was known as Bharatavarsha, the entire earth, because there was no Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, America, Russia, USSR, Ukraine. All these were not there. So everything was known as Bharatavarsha. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time, obviously all these divisions were there. So Bharata Bhumi is referring definitely to the Indian subcontinent. Bharata Bhumi Haile Manushya Janma Yara. Whoever has taken birth as a human being, not as a dog, as a human being in the Indian subcontinent, Janma Sarthaka Kari. To make good use of your life, what you should do? Kara Para Upakara. You should go and do upakara means do good things to others. And in the next few verses, he will describe, which we, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, you can see the reference here, Adi Lila 9.41, that here upakara means disseminating spiritual knowledge. The main wealth of India is spiritual knowledge. When Srila Prabhupada went to Britain, to London, and people asked him, why have you come here? You're so old, you're happy in India. And we have everything, London at that time in the 60s and all was, sort of still considered to be, at the peak of its opulence. So Srila Prabhupada gave a very equally witty answer that, yes, you ruled us for 200 years. Whatever you have, which you are proud of, actually you got from India only, you stole it away. But unfortunately, you forgot to take the most important thing away, which is the spiritual knowledge. So I have now come here to give that final thing to you as well. So that was Srila Prabhupada's sort of way of fulfilling this instruction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to go and disseminate spiritual knowledge everywhere. All right. So we will stop here. Sorry, the session went on for a longer time, but I really wanted to complete this today. And next Saturday onwards, we will start with Ishopanishad. So this is the completion of the pastime of Maharaja Chitraketu. So we'll take a little break from Srimad Bhagavatam and we will do a series on Ishopanishad. It is 18 mantras. We saw a sort of a mini Upanishad today of 8 verses. We'll look at the most important Upanishad, which is the Ishopanishad next. So I wanted to complete this today for that reason. Are there any questions or comments or anything? Yes.
So at the point when the child goes back after telling that, so I'm thinking that it's not common that if you are heartbroken by something, it leads to detachment. It could lead for you to go into the state of pain and lamentation because you expected your son to recognize you and your love, but now, and it's very normally said here that they got detached. I just wanted to comment that, is this because of the blessing or it was predestined that they were
No. So the question is like, it seemed very casual or normal that they got detached. But please consider what just happened. The son had died. Okay, everybody has seen people dying. But a dead person coming back alive and speaking is just unheard of. It's such a huge shock. And that same son, I mean, you have to just probably take a few minutes, or after you go back home, all of you, just imagine this situation. It is definitely a great, a very deep and very great suffering for the parents to lose a child. But the child's body coming back to life by the mercy of Narada Muni, and that child speaking this philosophy to you, okay, does give some peace in your heart. I don't want to take any names, but some very personal, very personal situation. Somebody lost a very loved one. And I have full faith that this is true, that that loved one, that person had a conversation with that loved one in a dream. And a serious conversation, maybe just hardly 2 minutes. Serious conversation can be done in 1 minute. You don't have to sit and chit chat about everything. The most important things really just, and he was, my understanding is that that person got a lot of relief from that conversation. And this is something very true that I'm sharing with you, of somebody who is very close to me. And I would fully trust that this is not made up. And I don't know, maybe some of you have experienced this or not, whatever. So may that never happen to you. But the best that you can do is to put yourself in that situation and see it that does give. And in some situations, anyway, I'll not go into that. Yes.
So this was a little child, right? So why did the child have this full life to fulfill, and like the loss of a human life is a big deal without, especially when you're so young in age and you haven't fulfilled your life purpose, right? Your soul purpose. So why did the child not consider coming back? Because they would have helped him fulfill his soul purpose, he would have done something better.
So I'm not sure at what point you came, but first of all, it was not in the child's hands to come back or not. That was the duration of his life. Okay. So the life is ordained for a certain time. Some people live 100 years, like the Queen Elizabeth lived for what, 96 years? And Diana lived for what, 36 years, right? Even though she was going to become the queen, so to say, if she had not, whatever, divorced and died or whatever they had, right? So everybody has a lifespan which has been ordained. So the child had to, first of all, and the second point is, that's why I said I'm not sure at which point you joined, but when the child came back to his body, he was completely detached. He had no desire, the child had no desire to continue to live in that body. Narad Muni in fact told him, hey, my dear child, you can continue in this body, have a full life, you will be the emperor of the earth. The whole earth will be yours. He said, I'm not interested.
But is that right or wrong? Or, I mean, it's just his choice. I mean, like people say, if you have something like, okay, I want to write books, I want to do this, I want to do, and like something happens, and like if there's a health issue or something happens, sometimes it gets solved because you have something which you haven't finished in this life. Not always, but it happens. These kind of things.
Yes,
happen.
yes, absolutely.
If you have something that you are like living your life to do it, but you haven't yet finished it.
sometimes your situation resolves so that it helps you finish it.
Mhm.
So, but this child was very small and it was at an age where he wouldn't understand anything. But I was just wondering, like, it's good. I understand that detachment very well. But just that it was a human life, after that, it might take him a long time before getting a human life back. So
So somewhere,
small child, so I guess that's why maybe that important.
yeah. So the question for yeah. So the question is somewhere along the lines that why wouldn't that child want to fulfill sort of a great accomplishment which he was given an opportunity for, to rule the earth, etc.,
No, like just a human life.
or a human life, and we can do many things with the human life. So the Bhagavad Gita teaches us, which is the fundamental text, that whatever may be the purpose of a human life, it is still a purpose that is associated with the body. Even if you consider Mahatma Gandhi, okay, he was fighting for Indian independence and he got it. You can assume that that would be a, one of the greatest achievements that a human being could achieve, right? Short of maybe, solving world hunger for once and for all, or some huge thing like that. But the Bhagavad Gita teaches us that all those accomplishments are tiny and minuscule compared to the accomplishment that is meant for human life. Every kind of body has been perfected or has been designed for a particular kind of purpose. Okay? Like a Mercedes car has been designed to run on a highway. If a farmer were to buy a Mercedes car and run it on his farm to, plow the land, neither the land would get plowed, neither the Mercedes car would last very long. Would you agree?
So the purpose of this child was to...
The purpose of, that was the last verse that we read. The purpose of human life is not to rule over the earth, not to fulfill some purpose, write a book, like you said. Those are things that come out of our attachments. These are all attachments. The highest purpose of human life is to develop a loving relationship with our dear eternal Father, which is Krishna, Bhagawaan. And if we don't achieve that, then we could have achieved other little things and we can feel happy about it. Like if, you go to college in a different city, which you have never seen, new city, and you say, wow, I have joined this new college, it's a new city, and you spend your time going around the city, exploring the restaurants and do all the stuff. But the one thing that you came to that college for, which is to study and get good grades and pass with a, degree, you fail to accomplish that. Then what's the point? You explored everything else, but you failed in the one purpose, the main purpose. So the Bhagavad Gita does not say that you should forget, you should quit this world, go to a forest and just, Bhagavad Gita. In fact, that is what Arjun, if you have, I'm sure you have the background of Bhagavad Gita known to you. Arjun was exactly trying to do that. He was saying, I don't want to fight. I don't want to go and just quit the battle and, become a sannyasi. That's pretty much what he said. What did Lord Krishna say? Did he say, yeah, you're on the right track? No, he did not say that. So Bhagavad Gita does not say abandon the world, but while living in this world, the focus should be to develop loving relationship with God. We have forgotten God. While we are in this world, we should try to revive that relationship. Everything else that we do is a secondary purpose. If we mix that to become the primary purpose, if we mistake it, if we misconstrue it, that no, that is my, like you go to this new city, oh, the primary purpose why I'm here is to explore all the restaurants. The secondary purpose is to get my undergraduate degree. Then you are mistaken, isn't it? So that is exactly what we read in the 58th verse, that the purpose of human life is to develop the forgotten relationship with God. Else, we are being foolish. So,
The point is that the child had the option to get the human life and he could have done that. You use that human life. Why did he choose not to use this opportunity that he was?
but that was not exactly the question. The question was to become the emperor, to fulfill.
No, my question was exactly, she understood. My question was because in the last paragraph you say when we finally get the human life, we have to make a difference. Like we can do things that we cannot do when we are like an animal or something else, like a microbe or something, right? So that is the thing. This was a human life, and now they are giving this baby a chance. But I think his age and his
So okay, so
was at that
so
level where it probably felt maybe the purpose of the child was to make this difference in the king's life, which that detachment.
exactly.
For him, the purpose was fulfilled.
So the purpose, the child's journey is not the focus of this story. The focus of this story is Maharaj Chitraketu's journey. What happened to the child is not discussed here, and maybe the child gets, it's not necessary that the child has to go through, or a human being after dying has to go through mandatorily all the yonis, all the species before getting another human life.
That's not, but there's a
So
possibility.
there is a possibility, but depending on the karma. Okay, and typically when a person dies early, again, we do not know. So I do not know why, I do not have an answer why the child did not choose that and use this human life as a vehicle to make spiritual progress. That's a good question. That I do not have an answer. However, what I do want to say is that as per the Bhagavad Gita, it is not necessary that one has to go through all the yonis, first of all. Second of all, especially those who die early, like a small 6-month baby can die in a car crash or an aeroplane crash or so many things. And this is a very common question. What wrong did that small child do? What possibly could he have done? He is so small. He doesn't even have the intelligence that he had to suffer so much in death at a young age. That's a very common question that is asked. It is definitely past karma. However, this human life has a balance of enjoyment and suffering. Do you agree? There is suffering and there is enjoyment. In the life of a devata, there is only enjoyment. In some of the lower species, there is a much greater proportion of suffering. Human life has a kind of a balance of suffering and enjoyment. Typically, those who die early, their quota of, so in this human life, you are supposed to finish off any remaining suffering and use the rest of your human life for spiritual progress and go back to the spiritual world. That is the purpose of human life. For those who are dying young, the understanding that the Shastras give us is that they had very little quota of suffering that they had to finish off. Without doing much spiritual progress, they can make progress in their next life. So that life is supposed to be short, and it was done, and they go typically to a higher life form. All right. So that is the understanding. So those who now, one can say that, yeah, this is just a way to make you feel better, that a person who died young is making higher progress. But this is what the teachings of the Shastras are. So we do not know what exactly happened to this boy. We do not know exactly for children who die young or people who die at a very young age, what is their destination. But the focus of this story is actually the journey of Maharaj Chitraketu. And we did not cover the sort of the full aspect. Maharaj Chitraketu becomes a very, very elevated demigod or a devata, the ruler of the Vidyadhara planet. And then the Lord actually plans to accelerate his liberation from this material world by a certain arrangement, he becomes Vritrasura, who is one of the greatest devotees of the Lord, even though in a demoniac body. That is another perplexing point. How can a demon be a devotee? And then in that life, he goes back to Vaikuntha. So this entire series, the entire life sort of journey of Maharaj Chitraketu is being shown in this particular episode of Srimad Bhagavatam. We do not have insight into what happened to the child, but I have given you the general principle. Okay, and yeah, so that part of your question was very, I would say, very sensible, that yes, he could have made use of the human life that he was being given to make spiritual progress. But one of the potential understanding is that his, whatever he had to accomplish in the human life was already done. He did not need that extra time. All right.
Puji, may I add something?
Yes.
Actually, Angira Rishi, when on the request of Chitraketu, gave a child, then it was not a ordinary jiva. He would not be a ordinary jiva, which was given to just educate Chitraketu. So this would have been a thinking.
We can speculate like that, but yeah. There is no confirmation.
He would already have been liberated from the life and had been given the birth just to educate Chitraketu.
Well, yeah, that is possible, but it's not mentioned anywhere, so we won't speculate.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Yes.
Is there any particular reason why Narada Muni gave Sankarshana mantra?
That question I also have. I looked it up in a few places. I did not find the answer.
What was the question?
The question was, why did Narada Muni connect Chitraketu Maharaj to Lord Sankarshana, to that particular expansion? Why not to some other expansion of the Lord?
Can I add something to this?
Mm-hmm.
I heard Bhagavatam, the next part of the saying like about darshan and Dhruva. And after Sankarshan gives the boon of Brahman, like in a Viman, like he travels to all the worlds and he explores all the things and gains knowledge. And once, like in the last class, he visits Shiva, Lord Shiva and Parvati, and he gets again like a demonic next birth. Maybe the Sankarshan has, it's not like up to the mark, like he is not to attain
Yes.
Lord
Yes.
Narayana, but the next step in the next Janma after, it's a step wise. Maybe
Yes.
Narada Muni knows ahead and he gives the both of in the form.
Yeah, so what you are saying is, yes, so that part is very true, that he was not, even though he had the darshan of Lord Sankarshana, he had small little amount of material desires left in his heart. So his heart was not fully purified, and that is why he had one more life remaining to be taken. So this is a deeper point. I did not want to touch upon that. It can be confusing because after seeing Lord Sankarshan, and we read certain verses where it is said that his heart was completely purified, but still there was a tinge of material desire left in his heart, which is why he was not directly promoted to the spiritual world at the end of this life. And the Lord wanted to actually accelerate his promotion to the spiritual world. So it was orchestrated that he commits that offense to Mother Parvati or to Lord Shiva, which Mother Parvati kind of mistook to be an offense. It was not an offense, but she ends up cursing. That was an arrangement of the Lord to accelerate his promotion to the spiritual world. So yes, and this is a very perplexing point, that after getting the darshan of Lord Sankarshana, so what we are saying is that's why he did not, let's say, get darshan of Lord Narayana or Lord Krishna, somebody lower. But I think her question was maybe why not Aniruddha, why not Pradyumna, why Sankarshana? It could be any of the four expansions, or but not somebody higher. But why not some other expansion. So I don't know the answer to that. But it is also perplexing even to me. I don't have that answer. Maybe I will ask some senior devotees as to how come there was even such a little material desire left in his heart, why he could not get promoted to the spiritual world at the end of this life, why he had to take one more life. These are deeper topics. Okay.
The longer you stay in the material world, there are chances that you get it. I mean, he got the darshan, but then after that, he was still here. And in that journey, maybe that's the reason the child thought, I don't want to come back.
Yeah, even Dhruva Maharaja, he also got the darshan of Lord Narayana, not Sankarshana, directly of Lord Narayana. And then he ruled for 36,000 years. And then he, in that ruling, he went on a complete massacre of the yakshas, to the point where Swayambhuva Manu had to come and stop him. And finally, at the end of that life itself, he went back. But one can ask the question that after getting the darshan of Lord Narayan at such a young age of 5, how could he have that sort of anger in his heart? So these are, I need answers to these maybe. So that's why I'm reading Srimad Bhagavatam myself, and I'm eager to share with you what I'm reading. That's why I kind of share. But it doesn't mean that all my own doubts and questions have been clarified. Far from it. So I'm also on a journey. We are all co-travelers. So, ride along if you would like. But, we are on a journey together. I don't have all these answers. Any simple answers? Maybe yes. Anything else? Nice question answer session today. It's gone much longer than anticipated. So we will stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Granthraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Thank you so much for tolerating and hanging around.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.